because this is the 78th episode of SETI BIMCO and
Woohoo!
episode 28 of SETI BIMCO Part 2, The Revenge. And this month, talking all about Spider-Man, and later this hour, we're going to talk about the episode called, what, George?
Night of the Clones.
Yes, Night of the Clones. Because it's Spider-Man. Okay. Also, we answer the age-old question. Did Mary Todd Lincoln ever get revenge on those scalpers who charged her way too much money for those tickets to Our American Cousin at the Ford Theater?
Terrible.
It's SETI BIMCO Part 2, The Revenge. The show where we create revenge sequels that nobody wanted.
It is SETI BIMCO Part 2, The Revenge. Where we make revenge sequels to shows and movies, and right after we talk about Night of the Clones, Spider-Man, we're going to ask a wild card question. We're asking it right now. Am I making sense?
Let me write it down. Get ready to write it down.
I pick it out, and we improv. Who from this episode of Spider-Man, Night of the Clones would be most likely to, number 11, end up drinking coffee at the local gas station with a bunch of old men all day? These questions have nothing to do with Boggy Creek.
I was about to say, this sounds like something you wrote immediately after we watched Boggy Creek.
All right.
That's a long one.
That's all out of the way.
Yeah.
George had a request.
I have an unusual request.
Uh-oh.
I would like, so as the time we're recording this, it's immediately after the release of episode number, not sure, but it was The Night Killer, the episode with Kevin Cablasto, dear friend of the podcast. Hi, Kevin. Filling in for me because I don't know what I was doing. So I did have a pretty strong reaction to it, and I took the liberty of writing a piece of fan mail. Okay. And this piece of fan mail is addressed to someone who I feel is an unsung member of the SETI BIMCO team, the SETI BIMCO family, if you will. I was wondering if you could actually do me the favor of up front reading the letter I wrote.
This is outrageous.
It is outrageous, but you know, we're a revenge-themed podcast. There needs to be transgressions with which to revenge things against.
So you want me to read the letters first? Okay.
Yeah, with the letters. Is there more than one?
Well, there's hate mail because we've made fun of the Lockhorns.
Those Lockhorn fanatics. Leave Leroy alone. It's his right to hate his wife.
But you interviewed them, by the way. The people who do the Lockhorns?
I interviewed John. Forget. I want to say it's Reiner. I interviewed in high school the guy who did the art for it.
Oh, I see.
Here's the juicy bone mote, though.
Yeah.
So I'm this little fresh-faced kid. I'm all like, oh, boy, you draw it. And Bunny Host. Bunny Host is the widow of the man who created and drew the Lockhorns, died, passed it on. Yes. Bunny Host writes it. And John Reiner was like, she doesn't write it. I write it. And I was like, oh, what a scoop. And it was like, I never put it in, but I've read interviews since and I've never seen that detail come up. But I think
maybe he's
that one day, no, I think he seemed like he was like, at the time he seemed a World Worry cartoonist. He was probably only like 30, but he'd probably already been drawing the Lockhorns for years.
Was he married though? Was he writing from experience?
No, I don't. Good question. Maybe we could use some of the SETI BIMCO funds to put me under not hallucination, hypnosis. Hypnosis, and then they can ask me, take a look down at Mr. Reiner's hand. Is he wearing a wedding band?
That's right. We could do that.
Yeah, let's do it. Special SETI BIMCO episode.
Is there skin under his fingernails?
Oh, so now he's just gone to murder.
This is your producer, Miss Lee. This show is not about the Lockhorns comic strip. Can we please move it along?
Let's get to your letter.
Read the letter.
You want me to read this? Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, head SETI BIMCOnauts. Bimkanat, Tim, and replacement Seti Bimkanat. Oh, geez. Kirini Kabimo. Kabimzo?
Kirini Kabimzo, yes.
Just reading what you wrote. Sorry, Mr. Kevin Kabumo. This letter is not for either of you. Instead, I direct this message to the producer, the esteemed Miss Lee. I was just listening to the intro of the most recent episode of Seti Bimco, Night Killer, and heard your delivery of the no doubt scripted by Tim catchphrase. This particular episode, the line was, "I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, Mr. Party Pants, too." Good one. Your delivery of the line was fine, but what elevated it to sublime was the barely audible ugh of disgust you muttered afterwards.
May I do it? It was like, it's barely audible. I don't think you caught it on there. Ms. Lee reads your line, which is actually, I should point out, you have already done the "I'll get you, you're pretty, and your little dog too." It's a different name previously.
Yeah.
But this time Miss Lee just gives a little afterwards, barely listenable. Ugh. Like, she's just defeated and deflated, and my heart went out to her in that moment, because she's, I mean, people, this podcast you listen to, she's the woman who makes the trains run on time. She makes everything happen behind the scenes, and she has to deal with these Timisms.
True.
So Tim's sitting there writing his little things and making her read in marathon sessions. You're a harsh taskmaster.
I said, do it again.
Do it again. Do it. You're like Stanley Kubrick, and she's like Shelley Duvall.
Yes.
You bring her to tears. You say, "No, Mr. Party Pants," like that.
Say it like you care about Party Pants.
Say it like you care about that dog. So
True.
yeah, I just wanted a little shout out to like that was delightful. I turned the episode off and wrote to you immediately.
What? Here she is.
This is your producer, Miss Lee. George, thank you for acknowledging the suffering and the contributions I make to this show.
That was a pretty exciting moment. I think we could all agree, Tim.
Yes.
And, in case you're wondering, I did listen to the rest of the episode with Kirini Kaboomzo. And I also want to speak to him briefly.
Okay.
That as your long-suffering co-host, we've chopped up John, put him through a grinder somewhere. Like, that poor guy. He was never the same after his stint on Seti Bimco. There's this recurring theme in Seti Bimco where I'll be excitedly spinning the moments of the episode that we were, whatever movie or TV show we're reviewing before we get to the revenge. Yeah. And the entire time you'll be muttering, "Oh, this is so long. This is going so long." And I'll try to speed it up. And then you'll keep interrupting to be like, "Oh, but wait, here's a 3-part list I wrote about things I found on my toenails." And you were doing the same thing to Kevin. And he himself was also feeling exasperated. And I was like, I know what he's going through.
Oh my God.
Yep. I know we're not doing What Enrages George anymore, Outrageous George, but I think we may have done What Outrages George.
You're enraged again.
Oh, my blood pressure. Okay.
This is your producer, Miss Lee. This show is not about Tim's narcissism. Now, can we please move it along?
So, Tim, you always like to share your stories of revenge that you gleaned from the news.
Yes.
I read your first one you sent out about a person seeking revenge on Ham.
You like that better?
Well, it kind of was, it wasn't really revenge on him. I could see that you were sweatily grasping for straws.
I was.
Just now, I did not see until you just sent it, until I went to click on the link. You sent me a previous story about a boy who seeks revenge on the deer that ruined Christmas.
Yes.
I did not read that story at all. So I hope, Tim, when you tell me this story, you could paint a vivid word picture so I could feel like I can experience it.
Well, there's not.
The first time.
Are you up to something?
Was the deer Rudolph?
No.
Was it Donder?
You want me to tell you? It's
was
just
it Blitzen?
The only reason the story is funny or sad.
I'm betting, knowing you, it's sad.
A deer broke into a house. And there was a teen kid at home. And the deer destroyed their Christmas tree. And he had called the police, and he thought they didn't sound like they were that concerned. So he got his dad's gun, especially after it destroyed the Christmas tree, and shot the deer. That's the basic story.
That's how old was this teen? Like, were we like younger side of teens or older side of teens?
Well, if you want me to get the article, there's a picture of him. He's like 16, old enough to be, I don't know if that was his age, but he looked 16 or so. He's wearing a shirt that says lifeguard. So
that's ironic because he's a lifeguard, but he took life.
He says some may not agree with me, but the deer was doing a lot of damage, and the deer did not, had not accepted Jesus as his personal savior, and no respect for the Christmas tree. But the deer got revenge on him in the end because the deer had ticks with Lyme disease, and that kid got Lyme disease. So
nice.
All
right,
it's a true story.
That's a happy story all around. I mean, no, it's sad for the deer.
Sad for the Christmas tree.
I'm assuming the boy got Lyme disease and just is dead, right?
Well, no,
but assuming that I'm assuming he died from it.
Okay.
Assuming that hadn't happened, Christmas would always be associated with the sounds of buckshot and maybe not buckshot. Let's just say a full-on shotgun and blood splattering everywhere. The screaming cries of a dying mammal, all in his living room. That kid, no good would have come from that child.
Well, I mean, okay.
Have you ever seen Gremlins?
Oh yeah.
You remember there's the very famous scene where Phoebe Cates is talking about why she hates Christmas because her dad got drunk and came down the chimney as Santa, but he slipped and broke his neck, and Christmas is ruined. This kid, he's going to be like, he'll be a grown-up telling his kids about the reindeer, and he's like, and then I shot him! And they're going to be like, that's you don't understand Christmas anymore.
I know, every year around the Christmas tree, this reminds me of the time.
I blew away Blitzen.
I was just wondering how much blood would be in the house if he shot it in the house.
I feel like a lot. And I mean, he was up close, so maybe he was an easy, clean kill, but maybe that thing was running around. What if kids at home, 16 years old, right? Mm-hmm. He's getting into that wacky tobacco. He gets the munchies. There's nothing in the house. He starts eating the tree himself. Okay. When he comes to afterward, he's like, I got to cover this up. He goes into the woods. I assume this is in Canada or somewhere. Shoots a deer, brings it in the house, throws it on the tree. What do you think?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're watching I think it's the 4th episode of Spider-Man. I did good research. Okay. It's called Night of the Clones. Mm-hmm. It's directed by Fernando Lamas, father to Lorenzo Lamas.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I found that fact out.
Previous episode had Alan Alda's dad in it. There's a lot of famous dads in this.
There is.
And I just feel like I'd be remiss in not mentioning this. Tim hates when I acknowledge the fact that he and I are comic book fans. But something that Spider-Man in the comics is somewhat infamous for is a long-running storyline that went on for literally – it started in the 70s and kind of went away and then came back in the 90s and ran for years. It was the Clone Saga, where there's all these different clones of Spider-Man. And it's become a thing. Spider-Man is very closely associated with clones. Mm-hmm. And so this one, I was like, this could be interesting.
It was similar to the original comic plot that one of Peter's professors did this. So
yeah. I mean, this honestly is the closest thing I think we've read to an adaptation of something. Like this could have straight up. I'm not sure. I should have done my homework to see if that storyline had already appeared yet.
It did.
But this is okay. 75. So yeah, I feel like this might be an actual adaptation.
Yeah.
All right.
Morgan Fairchild's in it, playing Lisa.
Stunned to see her. And surprisingly, she was not very good in this.
No.
She had some really bad delivery of lines. I was like, oh, I assume that's Fernando Lamas's fault.
And Carl Swinson, he's in this.
I don't know who that is.
He played the Doomsayer in The Diner and the Birds when he was old. Yeah. He played Theodore Roosevelt once too. Really? Yep. You know when Theodore and all his friends went to the Amazon? Did you ever read that book?
Yes, actually.
My little town is part of a small valley, 3 towns. Mm-hmm. And one of those towns used to be a place that built canoes and boats. That's where Theodore got his big canoes to go down the river and that were like useless right away and got all busted.
Really?
Yep, way back in the 1900s.
Also from that account of when Theodore Roosevelt went down the Amazon, that's why if you ever read anything about a piranha, they always say how they could skeletonize a cow in like X amount of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That comes from that book. Because the people down there were like, hey, want to see something cool? And they put a cow in the water and got skeletonized. And he was like, bully.
I read that book. I don't remember that part.
Yeah. Maybe take this all out. Look, folks, if you're looking to do a report on Teddy Roosevelt or Carl Svensson or really any source of information, maybe get a second source other than Seti Bimco, because chances are Tim and I are talking out of our asses.
His son name was Kermit, right?
His son? Yes, he did have a son named Kermit. I think Kermit died in
Amazon.
No, I think he died in a fighter plane, like in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Think so. Or maybe he was killed by Jim Henson.
Yeah,
hollowed out.
I was going to say he died because it wasn't easy being green, but all right. Go with your.
That's better. That's better.
It's not.
All right, I'm moving this forward. Because I don't know why we're sitting here talking about Kermit Roosevelt instead of this
Spider-Man.
So
Dr. Moon.
Starting this. No, we're not up to Dr. Moon yet. We're starting at the Daily Bugle. And for the first time in the entirety of the series, there is more than 3 people there.
Right.
There's an entire room full of people. It's J. Jonah Jameson. It's his secretary, who we refer to as Not Glory Grant, because there's a character in the comics who is this character, but for some reason they changed her name for this.
Rita.
To Rita.
Lovely
something.
Rita.
Rita Skeeter. And then there's a bunch of other random reporters, and J. Jonah Jameson is passing out assignments for people. Mm-hmm. Something we should mention in this show, instead of just being a dude who is, sometimes sells photos to J. Jonah Jameson on a freelance basis. Several times in this episode, he mentions he's on salary. This is his full-time job. He is a newspaper man who also goes to grad school, apparently.
And has no friends.
And has no friends except for maybe Rita. Wait, Tim, was Rita, a.k.a. Not Glory, is she hitting on him?
I don't think so.
Are they doing is she in love with Peter and he doesn't realize thing? There was a couple of bits in this episode. I was like, huh. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
No.
So the Tovald Awards are happening.
Yep. Tovald. Tovaldld.
No, do it right.
Tovald.
Yeah. Yes. Now, I know from Tim sending me text messages, you are of the belief this is an acronym.
Yeah,
so as to derail this right off the bat, right? Let's derail this. What does Tovald stand for? Yeah, what do you think Tovald stands for?
Totally over various angry lavender ducks. I really couldn't think of anything.
Wow.
I wasn't going to bring it up. Say, George will think of something funny.
I'll see. Tim ovulates verily.
What?
Anagrams lick dick.
Jeez.
How's good one.
Wow.
We just got. Yeah. So the Tovald Awards, which is a big science award. I'll be honest, Tim, had you not texted me, I would never realize those weren't a real thing.
Well, they talk about it incessantly.
They do. I guess I probably would have figured out at one point, I'm like, this can't be real. So the Tovald Awards is a big science award. Peter's very excited about it. And J. Jonah Jameson is assigning various reporters to cover various people. And they all have very normal names. And there's one guy, Dr. Moon. And as soon as they say him, like, well, he's going to be the bad guy, clearly. And Peter's like, Dr. Moon, doesn't he have a bad relationship with the Tovalds? And J. Jonah Jameson's like, what do you mean, Peter? And goes, well, they keep passing him up years for years. Not to talk out of school, but I hear it's because he's been involved in cloning.
I know.
So we're like, I guess this is what's going to happen. And then
cloning is a crime in most countries.
Well, not only that. I mean, okay, granted, this TV show is from 1978. Peter has to explain to Rita, a.k.a. Not Glory Grant, and by extension, the audience, what cloning is. I'm like, did people really not know? And if so, why call this Night of the Clones?
I felt bad for Rita making her stupid like that.
Yeah, like we've never seen any evidence that Rita wouldn't know this thing. So he's like, cloning, it's when you make, and like they do this whole thing. I had to remark also, J. Jonah Jameson is straight up nice and charming throughout this entire scene.
I know. Well, he's happy that an American could win this scientific award.
Oh, yes, that is important.
And not an American who immigrated somewhere around 1946 to help us win the space race from Nazi Germany.
You know, and that's... I'm glad you whispered that. Yes, J. Jonah Jameson is very concerned about Project Paperclip. It's a recurring theme in the show.
Doesn't want some pinko commie winning.
Which is weird, because that's actually the opposite of a pinko commie.
What?
A fascist? A Nazi fascist?
Let's not get into that.
Oh. You know, there's good people on both sides.
The brown shirts? Yeah.
The brown shirts. So Peter Parker, who, in case you don't know, is actually the Amazing Spider-Man.
He's anti-cloning.
Anti-cloning.
Because do you hear the insult he hurls on Rita? Because Rita's like, you mean a clone is like, I could have a baby and it'd be just exactly like me? And he goes, yes, Rita. And she goes, I don't think I'd like that. And he's like, yeah, me neither.
She goes, I don't think that's a good idea. And he's like, yeah, me either. I'm like, what? Why? What's wrong with Rita? Yeah. And he makes his face. He's like, yeah, because Rita, you're a human turd. One Rita's enough, sucking up our resources, taking up our air. And then,
drinking all our coffee.
So then we go.
Holiday Christmas tree.
Shooting deer inside your house. Then we go to the reception where it's a press conference, actually. It's in a hotel where Dr. Moon, who's clearly going to be the bad guy because his name is Dr. Moon, is giving a demonstration of his latest scientific marvel. We meet the character that's played by Morgan Fairchild. I never wrote down her name. You said Lisa?
It's Lisa.
She is the granddaughter of one of the judges for the Tovald Award.
Yes.
But aside from that, I can't figure out what the hell she's doing here.
Well, she's
except
helping
for
him.
their kind of.
He's an old man. Isn't he in a wheelchair?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. She's hanging out with all the scientists. I think she's.
Well, I was meaning more like just for like the story, like because they do have this tendency. There's a woman who's supposed to be like it seems like it's supposed to be the love interest every time.
Yeah,
but she doesn't give Peter the light of day, and she doesn't give Spider-Man.
Doesn't believe
just weird.
A word he says.
Doesn't believe at all. Like she's. I actually thought she was going to be a clone. Because, I mean, the show is called the Night of the Clones, so I'm expecting clonery to happen. There was a scene that happened that Tim must have been so excited about.
Yep, elevator
action. We had two of the judges for the Tovald Awards, though not Morgan Fairchild's grandfather, get into an elevator, and we see a close-up of a gloved hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's holding what looks like a plunger, like the sort of thing you use to blow up a bomb. And then we see
straight out of Star Wars.
It was just like Star Wars. He has a lightsaber, and he's actually a Jawa.
No,
but no.
I mean his device.
Oh no, it looks kind of like an old Nintendo thing. And we see like there's like the button that makes the elevator go up and down, and the two men get in, they're talking, blah, 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 Tovald. And then that finger, which we're not seeing who this face is. Nope. It pushes the plunger down. There's an explosion we see in slow motion. It's like we're watching like a Zack Snyder film. The control blows up, and we see the numbers on the elevator shaft outside goes from 17 to 1 very quickly. Yep.
And Morgan Fairchild didn't get on that elevator.
Morgan Fairchild didn't, and important to notice, although it doesn't come to anything, we see the finger that pushes the button kind of wavering, like almost like he wouldn't have done it had Morgan Fairchild get on.
Oh, wow. You saw so much in this. You're looking
I thought
the deep. Yeah, you're going deep.
I was writing all these notes thinking this was going to come to something. Spoilers, it doesn't. She has nothing to do with anything. He would have no reason to protect her or give a shit at all.
I think she's unfortunately one of those ladies looking to hook up with an old guy who's like got only a few years left.
You think she's doing it with her grandfather?
A lot of money. Well, she's hanging out with all of them.
Yeah, she might be.
Sorry, I don't mean to say that.
You did. You actually, there was no reason to say that. So you definitely.
I don't know why she's hanging out with these guys. Like you said, I couldn't figure it out.
I tell you why, because I think she's supposed to be a Peter Parker love interest. The script never got to that. They just kind of got. Unlike every other episode we've done so far, this is not a double episode, and I liked it for it. So what is interesting to mention is that those guys in the elevator don't die.
What?
And I have realized something about they say that. They both are recovering.
I didn't hear
that.
Yeah,
it's in the newspaper the next day, and they're talking about it with Morgan Fairchild. They hammer it home twice for us.
Why?
Because I realized something.
What?
This is a show where no one dies.
Well, they do at the end of this episode.
Kind of. No one, if I may be oblique and esoteric, no one fully human dies. Ooh, what does he mean?
That is weird. Right. No one has died on this?
I don't think so. Yeah, it took me a while to realize it.
Interesting.
Yeah, because, if you were in an elevator that a bomb goes off of that then plummets 17 stories, I think you'd be dead. Especially if you're like two old men, but they're not dead. Yeah.
Their wheelchairs save them.
Now, nobody notices this, even though they're in a hotel where an elevator blows up and plummets.
Is that the same
the
building?
Press conference goes, yeah.
Okay.
Press conference goes off without a hitch.
Did you see who was at this press conference? You're talking about when Dr. Moon walks into the...
Yeah, and he shows his great invention.
Did you see who was in the room with him?
Some 70s actor I didn't know.
No, Boom Mike.
Oh, that was the Boom Mike. We have another sighting of the vaunted Boom Mike.
It was there. I think it was his assistant with the cloning.
Man, this show, it's good.
Dr. Moon says he's having a press conference. This is what confused me. What he's going to do is going to make traditional cloning obsolete. And I'm like, well, what is
he says
traditional cloning?
Traditional cloning needs a donor mother.
Oh.
You need to implant the egg inside of some sort of mother. And he says, watch before me, and in a matter of hours, my partner, he keeps referring to his frog as a partner, which maybe is what you were setting up with Kermit before. It's just a frog, which I'm watching this like...
No, George, you're paying attention to too much.
I liked this episode. That's why
it embarrassed me. I wasn't paying attention.
Well, this is a turnabout. Normally, you're the one paying attention. I'm like in the other room doing the dishes.
But did you see the name on the container holding the frog?
No.
Come on.
I didn't.
Kermit.
It did really say Kermit?
Of course. I was paying attention to those details.
Nice. I mean, any Muppet-related detail you'll nail. So his partner is a frog. Okay. He takes blood from the frog, puts it just in the cell. And because this is his new thing, it won't create like a identical baby. He puts it on this thing. And I guess this press conference goes for 3 hours because he says it's going to take 3 hours.
That's the funny part of this. He says, and in just a few hours, and they just show still shots of them with their mouths open going, ooh. And they show a tadpole growing.
Close up of Peter, like just seeing through his eye going, oh, the photograph. And it's footage of a tadpole growing, and then it just becomes a frog.
And 3 hours later, they're all standing in the same spot. That's what it was. Nobody left to use the bathroom. Nobody got hungry. Nobody fainted.
So apparently they clone it, and they're like amazing. And Peter's like, you would do that to people, wouldn't you? And Dr. Moon's like, no, of course not.
And here's where we find out that he was one of Peter's teachers a little while ago.
Yes, and this is important because he recognizes Peter. He's like, you were in it was like intro to bio class. He's like, yeah, I was.
You were that kid that played Anne Frank in the production of Anne Frank at the university that year.
Always goes to Anne
Peter's
Frank.
Like, yeah.
No. Why would you say such a weird thing? Do you think it's funny what happened to Anne Frank, you monster? So now this part was interesting. Then we have a scene with our favorite character, Detective Barbera.
Oh, yeah.
Detective Hanna-Barbera, who has called in the elevator inspector, who clearly is a crook. Because that guy, he's holding the controls, which were blown apart by a bomb. He's like, oh, no, it just broke. I'm like, this guy, he's like, he goes, his name is Gavin, which I wrote down too, because I thought it was funny. And he's like, I inspected it 3 days ago. But Peter one of Peter Parker's well-known abilities, because Peter's there taking photos of this because it's newsworthy. One of his well-known powers, he's got spider strength. He sticks to walls. He has spider sense. In the comics and movies, it's a warning of danger. Like if someone's throwing a punch behind his head, he gets a second notice and he'll turn around. In this, it's weird. It tells him any plot convenient point he needs. And it replays time again.
Yep.
It shows he looks at it, his eyes flash, and he sees the thing blowing up. He's like, ah.
He watches the men fall to their deaths. sees their faces. Oh no, they don't die. Sorry.
No, they don't fall. They're okay. And then he goes back to there's some stuff. So they know stuff's afoot, and he's talking to J. Jonah Jameson back at the
he
Daily
takes
Bugle.
pictures, and Captain Barbera's like, "Get out of here! No pictures of the elevator.
Get out of here! Get my picnic basket." Because Hanna-Barbera, Yogi Berra, you get it, folks. So Peter goes and takes these pictures of this stuff to J. Jonah Jameson, who's mad he didn't get pictures of the gruesome stuff, and he yells, "Action, violence, elevator crashes. That's what sells papers." Which I'm like, again, like I imagine Tim at home jumps out of bed. He just fist pumps. He goes, "You!"
Well, he says the frogs are page 2 news. Dead people are on page 1. Something like that.
Yeah.
Frogs named Kermit. A dead frog named Kermit. He's on page 1 though.
That would be big news. There'd be tribute specials and everything.
Many dead tadpoles. That's page 6.
Yeah. How about frog legs? What page is that on?
That's in the. That's page 11.
What about a dead Frenchman who's pejoratively referred to as a frog? What page does that end up on?
Oh, jeez. That's on the horoscope page. I don't know. You're losing me here. Wow.
What about the My Gang cast member Froggy, who died in a bar fight where he bet he couldn't swallow 22 nickels and he choked on the 21st?
Oh, I remember that.
What page is that in? Yeah, it's rough. A lot of people don't realize it was Spanky that bet him that, and Spanky
that got knocked off the front page because he died the same day that Vice President Agnew.
Wait, I thought Spiro Agnew was still with us. Tim, I need a break. I have to process this. All right, so okay. All right,
I got nothing tonight. I just have to admit that. No yes ending. What happened?
It's because we had an imbalance. I watched I watched the fuck out of this episode for a change, and you sat there trying to think of acronyms for Tovald the whole time. So about this time, we have a scene where we discover that Dr. Moon, this Dr. Moon we saw, who knows Peter, who gave the demonstration cloning the frog, goes into his hotel room in the same building where the elevator crashed and everything's been happening in this one hotel.
Yes.
And there is a man that's asleep in his underwear on the couch. And that man looks exactly like
Dr. Moon.
Because it turns out that this cloning process, not only can it be done without a donor mother, a receptacle, not only can it bring up, instead of creating a baby, it creates a life form the same age as the one.
Yep,
it apparently takes their memories.
Yep.
But there's a hint because he realizes that the clone Dr. Moon, who should we call him? Dr. Half Moon?
Sure.
Dr. Half Moon actually was the one who tried to kill the 2 Torvald committee guys.
You can call him Dark Moon.
He's like, Dark Moon. That's cooler. And Dr. Moon goes to Dark Moon. He's like, why would you do that? And he goes, I have all your memories and your thoughts. You must have wanted to kill him.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you must have only been part of me. You're like a Mr. Hyde. Mm-hmm. And they have an old man wrestling match where he's going to knock Dr. Moon is going to inject Dark Moon with something. Right. But Dark Moon just takes it from him, sticks him back. And then from now on, Dr. Moon's the guy sleeping on the couch. And Dr. Dark Moon's out doing all his stuff.
Dark Moon's like, I know where you hid your hustling. Do you notice this episode is looks like it's actually filmed in New York? Because it's at night most of the time.
I actually wrote that. Yeah. That this isn't because there's actually scenes. You can see this one was actually filmed in New York.
Yeah. What a change.
There's scenes of them running around. Yeah. Tim, I'm telling you, this was a good episode.
It was the best so far.
Yeah. So to move this plot along a little bit,
there's going to be a costume party.
There's going to be a big costume party where the Tovald people will be, and Dr. Moon, who's really Dr. Dark Moon.
The Tovald Award seems to involve a wacky costume party. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's a scientist award.
I think they kind of let off a line like it's a tradition.
Scientists don't dress up in costumes. Come on.
And in order to get there, you need to have a costume. J. Jonah Jameson, who's still mad at Peter, is like, you better go. And Peter's like, I need money to rent a costume.
Well, it's a whole drama. It's a whole drama about needing money for a costume.
Yeah, he ends up talking to – this is where I thought like maybe that Not Glory Grant, a.k.a. Rita, was hitting on him. She's like, Peter, you seem to tell me you don't know any ladies that know how to sew. And she's like, I know how to sew. He's like, I do know a lady. Smash cut to Queens, where we have our second actress playing Aunt May. Now, there was something fucking outrageous in this scene, Tim.
I know. There's many things.
All right.
He's so worried about getting a costume. He's like, there's a whole thing.
And he's like, Aunt May, can you help me make a costume? Now, I will remind listeners of this podcast and watchers of Amazing Spider-Man, we have previously seen this guy sew his Spider-Man costume in about an hour. He made this thing. This guy is a gifted seamster. I don't know if that's a word. But he has to go to Aunt May. And Aunt May's like, I wonder what I should dress you up as. Maybe Tarzan. I'm like, why would you choose Tarzan? And she's like, no, that's too revealing. I'm like, Aunt May, you dirty old bird.
Peter's
and then
like,
the second one was also weird. Maybe Frankenstein, but you never could stand the sight of blood.
I know. I was like, what is going on? Who's writing the jokes?
Also, I mean, in Aunt May's world, she's like watching a double feature. She's first like, Johnny Weissmuller is Tarzan. I want to lick your abs. And then like Boris Karloff Frankenstein comes on. She's like, the blood. There's no fucking blood in Frankenstein. So, yeah.
Somebody's working on her lines.
Yeah, so
she ad-libbed a few other ones.
Peter leaves her to make the costume. We'll come back to that later. Then Peter runs in.
No, we can't come back to that later.
We have to. It's important for my story. Peter goes to the hotel to talk again to
you
Dr.
missed the most outrageous thing.
Oh, what?
She does say it now, right? Yeah, she goes, "Oh, I know what to dress you up at."
No,
okay.
She says it. She says it later, and I jumped up and punched the camera.
Okay, me too.
Yeah, I couldn't believe what happened. Folks,
let's go.
You will swallow your own tongues in apoplectic rage when we revisit this, but we're going to do it as it unfolds.
Okay.
So Peter goes back to the hotel where all the action's happening. He runs into Dr. Moon, who, remember, is Dr. Dark Moon now.
Yes.
Who very tellingly does not recognize Peter.
Nope.
And I assume it's because it actually kind of makes sense because he was cloned off sometime before Dr. Moon recognized Peter again. So he doesn't have any memory of the event. It makes sense. And he's like, oh, okay. And Peter gets the spider sense again.
Oh yeah.
Telling him there's something wrong with him, which is really funny because it's like it's literally like a weird polarized shot of him with like a flashlight shining on his butt.
Yes.
Because there's something wrong with the doctor. And he's like, Then he runs into his love interest, Morgan Fairchild. I don't know.
He tells her something's up about the elevator.
Yeah, he's like, something's up with the guy.
And she's just like, I don't believe a word you're saying.
You're crazy, Peter Parker. I hate you.
How come you're always around when that nasty Spider-Man's around? No, she doesn't do that.
No, she's dumb as hell. She really doesn't. Yeah, her character, not Morgan Fairchild. Morgan Fairchild is probably the most successful actor we've seen on this entire show so far.
Maybe. In
terms of her career. She was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, she's Dot, at the end, like with James Brolin playing P.W. Herman.
Forget all that. Got to watch that again.
That movie's great.
It is.
So the fake Dr. Moon, Dr. Dark Moon, then beckons Morgan Fairchild
downstairs to go without security because she has security all the time.
Yeah, she has a security guard because of what's happening. He's like, yeah, don't go with the security. You don't need her. She's like, okay, I'm stupid. I'll do that.
Spidey follows.
Peter gets the warning because the spider sense gives him plot specific stuff. He dresses up as Spidey and they go to this other address. It's actually not just downstairs. It's another building entirely. And that's when you actually have scenes of Peter Parker running in actual New York City. And I was like, oh, because up until now, like everything has been filmed in California.
Because he can't swing anywhere. Can't afford that. No. He just runs on top of the building.
Well, the one time someone tries to swing in this episode has disastrous effects. So we'll get to that later. So something's happening.
Did it look like he was saving her from sexual assault? Because when he looks through the window, he's like,
I don't know what was going to happen.
Caressing her.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know what was happening. Peter jumps in as Spider-Man. He smashes through the window. It's actually pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Because Dr. Dark Moon is doing something to Morgan Fairchild. whatever it is, she's not picking up on that's about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He does pull out a gun immediately, so maybe he was about to shoot her.
Yeah.
And that's what he got. But
Peter cuts his finger on the glass.
is that what happened?
Oh, yeah. You didn't realize?
No, because I even watched it twice, because the guy fires the gun and then Peter punches him in the face and he like recoils and holds his hand.
I just thought it was.
And I'm like, did he
clear.
get shot in the hand, or is this guy super strong now? But something happens to Peter's hand. He grabs Morgan Fairchild. They run off down the hallway. They run down all these stairs. Dr. Darkmoon chases them, and he stops along the way. And there's a little bit of a blood trail from Peter's wounded hand,
Yes.
Spider-Man's wounded hand. And he gets on his finger, and he looks up and goes off, and he stops chasing them.
But he somehow locks them in a vault. I was confused.
Yeah, they get.
You were paying attention?
It's like
what happened?
It's an abandoned
Bank.
I don't think he locks them on purpose. It's an abandoned bank. They lock themselves in a vault, or somehow maybe Dr. Moon does. So Peter
This is
uses
the stupidest Spider-Man. I mean, of all the Spider-Mans. He never...
but he does use his spider strength finally.
Yes.
And he kind of bends the vault door open and gets them out. And then he's saying to Morgan Fairchild, now do you believe me? He was shot a gun. He chased us down here. You gotta go to the cops. She's like, no, I don't believe you. All I know is you were trying to attack me. So he's just like, lady.
No, I believe nothing.
You gotta want to be saved. And he just leaves her there.
And the doctor takes home the blood, by the way. Did we make that clear?
The doctor takes the blood, this is actually kind of clever. So the doctor, who of course is an evil clone, goes to his cloning machine, which is actually in the hotel room. He's like, now to find out who Spider-Man really is. Mm-hmm. And he puts a little bit of the blood on a slide, and it starts growing into like a full-grown Spider-Man, as we knew would happen. Well, Peter.
Yes.
And I just wanted to mark, so we see shots of embryos and zygotes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Then we see the two most dead-eyed children as stand-ins for young Peter Parker. These fucking, these kids look nothing like him. First off, not for nothing. In the comics, Peter Parker, brown eyes, brown hair, okay? But Nicholas Hammond, the actor who plays him, has very bright blue eyes. These dim lit kids just had brown eyes. So whatever. But he grows up, and it's Peter Parker there under the sheet, and he's like, Spider-Man is Peter Parker, because of course Dr. Sun had the run-in with him. I'm calling him Dr. Sun now instead of Dr. Darkmoon.
Dr. Darkmoon.
You all know who I'm talking about.
By the way, this whole I think we, just for purposes of what talk about in the future, the plot of this show is that Dr. Moon gets turned down for the Toe Vault Award so much, and it's he's very upset about this. Okay.
Yeah, we should have mentioned that more clearly up front. He's been passed. Maybe we should put this up front.
Passed over so many times.
He's been passed over 5 times in a row, and apparently this guy's such a genius. Mm-hmm. He's the only person who should have gotten it.
And you know what, George?
What?
I have the 3.
Oh, you have a list.
The 3.
We had some steam going ahead. It's time to throw that list and derail it. Let's hear him. What are the 3 other inventions, Tim?
The 3 straws that broke the camel's back. Why?
Can't wait.
The real reason why he doesn't get the Toe Vault Award. Mm-hmm. Back in 1973, at the Toe Vault costume party, he and his then girlfriend Anna were both walking around the party dressed as clowns, and he was continually shouting at her, "I said clone costumes, not clown costumes." So they thought he was a jerk.
That's quite awkward. That's embarrassing. No wonder. All right.
And at the 1975 Toe Vault party, he and his then teen assistant Tommy had a stand at the costume party where they were selling socks with the word "pet" sewed on them. And he was shouting at his... They were selling socks with the word "pet" sewed on them.
Pet. Okay.
And he was shouting at his assistant, "I said pet rocks would be the great idea, not pet socks."
Oh.
You loving these? So the last one, the last reason for the 1976 Toe Vault ceremony, he wised up. He bought his own tickets to Australia where it was going to be held. He made all his own arrangements. But once he was at the airport, the announcer over the loudspeaker said, "Would passenger Moon go to gate E58? But Dr. Moon thought they said, "All passengers at noon go debate at 5 of 8. So he went to the airport debating room, and he missed his flight. There you go.
Why did you skip 1974?
I don't know. I don't know what happened there.
Oh, that's lost to the mists of
I think
time.
that was a different girlfriend, and she bought tickets. It was in Austria. She bought tickets to Australia, and she got
that's a good one.
she got stung by a scorpion and died. And he was like,
"Oh, what's that? Did she get a worm in her brain, a living worm, like that happened to that woman in Canberra?"
"No, scorpion's enough."
No. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty bad. All right. Now, where were we before that happened?
We see Nicholas Hammond grow up. Dr. Dark Moon has a clone of Peter,
Yep.
and Dark Peter hates Peter's clothes just like the rest of us. If you noticed.
Yeah. And also, so Peter, the Peter clone, let's call him Ben Reilly. He
no one knows
that's
what
a
that
comics.
means.
That's a comic. No, they do. He was in Spider-Verse.
In the comics, Ben Reilly is the clone.
Was the clone of Spider-Man. He's named after Uncle Ben and Aunt May's maiden name of Riley, in case you're wondering.
Gotcha.
But he's evil, and it's kind of cool. He speaks like it's like Nicholas Hammond being a bad boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, "This is Peter's pad? What a mess."
Well, before that, my favorite thing is he's getting dressed, grumbling about Peter's. He's like, "Can we do this over breakfast?"
Yeah.
That's what Parker would say. Guy's always hungry. I'm like, what a weird detail. So, I don't know if Ben Reilly, aka the clone of Peter Parker, I don't think he has powers.
Oh, he does. Come on. He fights Spider-Man at the end.
Kind of. I'll get to that.
I think he has powers.
So, we finally get our confirmation. We've been wondering this throughout the series. Does Peter Parker, in fact, live with Aunt May? And the answer is no.
Not in this one.
Aunt May has her own house in Queens. He visited. He has an apartment that is a dump.
A dump? Because Dark Peter's like, this is a dump.
It looks fine. Dark Peter. Yeah, Ben Reilly is like, this place is a dump.
He's only got two copies of Playboy. What a dweeb.
If I was the dominant person, I'd be 17 copies of Hustler. And he knows, because he has Peter's memories, he knows exactly where the hidden chamber where Peter hides his costume.
Yep.
But weirdly, so apparently Peter has 2 Spider-Man costumes, we learned.
Weirdly.
Which makes sense. He has extra set of web shooters.
But
apparently only 1 utility belt, because something you should know about this show is Spider-Man actually wears his utility belt over his costume. So he's got kind of like a Batman utility belt sort of thing.
Totally.
But weirdly, the clone didn't know that.
Well, the clone says he doesn't have an extra one.
No, the clone goes, there's only one utility belt though. And Dr. Dark Moon goes, maybe he doesn't have an extra.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he know that?
Yeah, I know. Why doesn't he know that?
I guess that's so we could tell them apart later, though. Frankly, I forgot to look for that.
I know. It's
so Ben Reilly steals the Spider-Man costume and the web shooters. Now we cut to Queens. That's where Peter was when this was happening. He's picking up his costume from his beloved Aunt May, and she has made him a pretty impressive Errol Flynn Buccaneer costume. He's like, "Wow, did you make all this yourself?" She goes, "Well, some of it. The boots were from the attic. They belong to your Uncle Max."
I know.
And that's why I'm like, what? Like, in this fucking show. So
why?
Go back and listen. We talk about, there is the episode, 2 episodes ago we do it. The opening episode of this series, they do Peter's origin. And Tim and I were both kind of like, it was pretty good. But very oddly, the most key part of Spider-Man's origin is the Uncle Ben death, and with great power comes great responsibility, and that's not in it. There's really no reason given why Spider-Man is Spider-Man. He gets the powers, but he decides to be altruistic. He doesn't have the growth of the character in the comics, where first he's like, "I'm gonna use my money to get power and money. I use my power to get money," and then. Yes. He's doing that. He lets a guy go, and Uncle Ben gets shot. But it's Uncle Max.
I know. Peter doesn't say much about Uncle Max because, he was the uncle that lived in the basement when he was very young, and he made fly fishing lures all the time while dressed as Errol Flynn. When Peter went down there to get folding chairs for Thanksgiving, he would see that Uncle Max had left a manifesto open, and it was all about
Oh,
his plans to be Errol Flynn lookalike in Times Square. Either that or like a cowboy that played his guitar in his underwear.
oh, you're aiming too low, Tim. Back then, Errol Flynn was probably still alive. He's like, I'm going to be the new Errol Flynn.
Yeah.
I'm going to take over his life.
That's right.
I'll be in like Flynn was the last line he wrote. And they never saw Uncle Max again.
Yep, that's true.
So he takes this costume, and I'm still like, at this point, I can't believe it. I'm like, really?
It's hard to pay attention after that.
That's like it was. It's like doing a Batman show instead of Alfred the Butler. It's like Tovald the Butler. It's weird. It's very weird. Like
it was.
Everybody knows that. So then Peter's trying on the costume, and he immediately blows out the ass, rips it open.
And Aunt May's like, "Isn't that just like you, Peter?"
Always blowing out your ass. Well, she's not there, and he's like, Aunt May, what did you do to me? Jeez. And then he's like, I know where I could get a costume, which I'm like, I can't believe you did in the first place.
You know what I thought originally? I was like, this show is so cheap sometimes. I bet you Aunt May knitted up a Spider-Man costume. It'll be just like his costume.
I thought that's what they were going to do, and I was surprised. Like, oh, I guess he's going to be a Buccaneer, but
no.
So of course, Peter now, because he just tears the ass out of this thing. Peter goes to the costume ball dressed up as Spider-Man because he is Spider-Man. Which
when he gets his costume, he doesn't notice that his extra one's missing either. That's what I was thinking.
That's funny, yeah. Also, did you notice this? He shows up. He's in his full Spider-Man costume at this party. His head's covered. He's got his actual gear on. Immediately, Rita's like, "Hey, Peter," yeah. And he doesn't react. It's not like because I'm like, "Oh, your costume needs work, buddy." Yes. Like you just blew your secret identity. And I've often thought that, like, Spider-Man does a better job of concealing his identity than most superheroes, honestly. Superman, that dude just doesn't do anything. He puts on a pair of glasses. Give me a break. Batman, most characters, they have half their face out. Yeah. Spider-Man covers every inch. Like, you don't know what he's like. Nope. But you still, just through body language and stuff, like, you kind of know him. And, like, this is clearly the point. But, I do want to mention, because I think it is amusing, he doesn't actually show any surprise she recognizes immediately. That should be such a huge red flag.
Because he immediately talks to Morgan Fairchild.
Uh-huh.
And he talks to her like, "Now, do you believe me? You remember what happened when we got stuck in the safe?" And she goes, "Oh, it's you, Spider-Man." I'm like, "What? You're telling one person here you're Peter. You're telling another person you're Spider-Man."
Yeah. And I feel like Rita's potentially within earshot when that happens. And then we see there's like another Spider-Man at the party who's got a bit of a gut.
Right.
And I guess that's funny. We're like, aha, fat Spider-Man.
Fatty Spider-Man.
But then
he's going to blow out his pants any day now. Anytime.
How does his pants even fit on there? And then we see there's 3 Spider-Mans. And Spider-Man, our Spider-Man, Peter Parker, goes to when he says something like, no, the clone, Ben Reilly, comes up to him and says something like, I don't know. What does he say? Do you remember what he says?
Have you ever, in real life, seen someone blow out their pants? So I don't know what I would do. I would collapse on the ground laughing. I don't think it's ever happened to me in real life.
Oh, man. Tim, I want to make that happen for you. I'm going to, one day when you least expect it, I'm going to plant somebody in the, we'll, be hanging out, at a bar somewhere or, at my house, and I'll have, an actor just go, let me just pick up this nickel and, blow out his pants.
Did we mention this was a different Aunt May from the first episode? Different actress played Aunt May, by the way.
Oh, I did, yeah. I mentioned.
Because they don't explain why she looks so different.
No.
But, George, I got 3 possible reasons why she looks so different. Let's slow this podcast down.
Let's bring it to a crawl. We're at the climax. We couldn't just finish this, but no, all right. What are the 3 reasons, Aunt May?
Well, in the old one, she looked much older. The first one. This one, she looks younger. Okay. So in this new episode, you can see she kicked the angel dust habit she had in the pilot.
Yeah.
Back then it was angel dust.
That explains why that's why she kept running up and down the stairs repeatedly. She had too much energy.
And in this new episode, she was actually a puppet designed and operated by Paul Fusco. He's the creator of Elf, the puppet Elf.
Oh, wow. I love that you mentioned that anyone would know that. Yeah, no.
John is.
If Paul Fusco, if you're listening. Okay. John's not listening anymore.
In the pilot, she'd been drinking a bottle of heroin cough suppressant from 1913 that Uncle Max gave her. So that's why.
Fuck Uncle Max.
He was a party guy.
That was good.
When they came to a party,
Okay.
when they came to Aunt May's house and Uncle Max lived there, the partygoers just counted down the minutes till Uncle Max blew his pants out. Doing some sort of dance.
Like, oh, that's how they celebrate the New Year. Everybody's like, they did a countdown. 5, 4, 3. And he's like, whoa, and his pants rip out. All right, so let's back to the show.
Back to the show.
Ben Reilly, who is the clone Spider-Man, pulls out a gun. This is why I think he doesn't have powers.
Yeah, it's weird.
And he pulls the gun on Spider-Man. So instead of them having like a cool Spider-Man fight, there's like Spider-Man gets the drop on him, punches him a couple times.
Wait,
the belt falls off.
Yeah, well,
so
they do put their masks on, and they have a fight on the roof. So
yeah,
they fight.
They fight, but it's like a couple punches. But he has the gun on him. Peter gets the gun away from him. There is a tussle. Peter's belt falls off, so I guess we're not supposed to know who's who.
Yeah.
Which, and then the
Dark Spidey,
one of the Spider-Men.
Okay.
We assume Dark Spider-Man. He fires his rope to the neighboring building, takes it, attaches it, which is something we never see Spider-Man do, and then he goes to swing across.
Zip line. He does like a zip line.
Do like a zip line, although it was up. So how was he zip lining against gravity? And the pole he attaches it to snaps, and he swings into the wall and explodes.
I think it was a light there, right? Something electrical.
It's like a transformer.
He vaporizes.
But he is atomized. And it happens so quickly. I had to get up and I'm like, what? Wait, what? Did he just atomize? Not a trace. Spider-Man's spirit costume and web shooters are also incinerated completely.
Typical Peter.
There's not, yeah. And then Peter goes to Dr. Darkmoon, who at this point is like, I made it. He's suddenly in pain.
Yes.
He's like, oh no, it's happening. I'm aging suddenly. And it's like the effect at the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where when Walter Donovan drinks from the wrong grail and ages super fast, but done very poorly. So he just ages and he's like, oh, tell them I'm sorry. And he dies.
Just like in Indiana Jones.
Just like that.
Didn't he say I'm sorry in Indiana Jones?
No, he just goes, oh, and he screams while he's holding Ilsa Schneider, and then he turns into a skull. And then the knight goes, he chose poorly. Mic drop. Great movie. Not like this. And then the bad Dr. Moon's kind of like, oh, I was wrong to try to kill them. I realize that now. I'm aging. Tell the real Dr. Moon I'm sorry. And then we don't get any real resolution. It's like Peter's like, there's reports like the only person who knows this happened is Spider-Man, who can't testify in a court of law because he's a secret entity.
In comics and in TV shows, if you find out a secret identity of a superhero, chances are you're just going to die accidentally.
Yeah, you know that. Once a character knows that, you're dying or something. And then we go back to the party and we discover, instead of resolving anything else, we discover that fat Spider-Man was J. Jonah Jameson.
And Peter takes a picture and he's just like, ah. He doesn't even hide his face. He's like,
that's literally, he pulls his mask back and he goes, hey, smile, Chief. Click. And he goes, R, Parker. And that's the end.
This is as bad as that time you took a picture of me in my adult diaper.
So what's going to happen like 30 seconds after this?
He did wake up.
Oh, by the way, there's an incredible aged corpse of a dead man that looks genetically identical to Dr. Moon. We should probably explain that. Luckily, nobody was killed in the elevator thing before.
Yeah.
Man.
It was the best episode, but they did so little with the clone. I mean, the clone could have talked to J. Jonah Jameson and the
clone literally never uses his powers.
And Jameson would have been like, hey, I like you, Peter. What's up with you? He would have liked Dark Peter. They could have done that. They could have been pals, gone
how
bowling.
do they not make this what else?
Well, Dark Peter would go bowling. That's all. They drink some Budweiser. Play ping.
But I mean, really, from like a standpoint, he knows Peter Parker's identity and he has a clone of Peter Parker. It's debatable whether or not he has powers. Mm-hmm. He could have really fucked over Spider-Man's life. Yeah. Instead, Peter Parker's clone is completely just not even incinerated. There's not even ash.
It was fun. That was fun. We
Yeah.
should do revenge.
Wherever you are, wherever you're hiding, I'll find you. I'll get you. I'll get you.
Revenge.
I'll get you.
Revenge.
Revenge. One of us will die. One of us will die.
I will
One of
not
us
let
will
Cindy
die.
take my place. I will have my revenge.
Should we do first? First, we should do our wild card, which, if I recall,
I know.
was most likely to end up drinking coffee at the local gas station with old men all day.
Talking about the Lockhorns. Or what's your favorite Muppet?
My favorite Muppet is Gonzo.
Mm,
Yeah,
I don't think I have a favorite Muppet.
yeah. I probably don't either.
Oh,
What the hell was that? Was that your toilet?
Cars.
Oh, okay. So,
Wait, I was going to ask your favorite something, George.
okay, what?
What is your favorite? What is your favorite Beatle? Who?
Are we talking Beatles like the band,
Yes,
or Beatles
the band.
like Rhino or Stag Beetle? I'm going to say George Harrison.
Oh, me too. That's funny. So
Yeah.
many people.
I think
say
he's
that.
most people's. I think he's most people's favorite.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Who's your?
Well, because you would say John Lennon for a while, but John Lennon, he's a lot. You don't want to say Paul because Paul's. I mean, not to be rude, Paul's overstayed his welcome. He's like 900 years old and still around.
Jesus.
And like we're all gonna be really sad when Paul dies, like me
Yes.
especially. But like George,
He
that
is
guy went too
special.
soon. He seemed to have a lot of fun.
Mhm.
He funded Monty Python
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
He seemed to have the coolest attitude about things. Just kind of laid back. He's like, yeah, one of the most famous people in the world, and yeah. He was the underdog. He was overshadowed by Lennon and McCartney, and he wasn't Ringo, most importantly. So yeah, it's
Right.
George.
See, this is what old men would sit around at a coffee table talking about.
Oh my God, we just were the old men.
Do you remember that comic strip? Carter's
Lockhorns.
Crew? Was it Carter's
Oh.
Crew?
No. I don't know if you're talking real comic strip.
Millie's Place?
So who's
Millie's Place?
you know who's joining us? Morgan Fairchild,
Oh.
because Morgan Fairchild's
Thought you were gonna
character,
say
as you opined,
Mark Twain.
she's no, not Mark Twain. Mark Twain's not welcome here. Morgan, you're like, why is she hanging around these old guys? She must be trying to find a rich old man.
That's not.
So
I
she's
didn't
like,
mean to insinuate that.
I know. But for the sake of this comedy bit, she sees the two of us sitting around talking about our favorite Beatles. She's like, that's some classic old man shit.
Mhm.
And she kind of sidles up to us and joins in a little bit until she realizes we're cartoonists. She's like, no, thank you. And she leaves.
Realizes what?
That we're cartoonists. We're not rich old men about to kick
that's
off. We're
right.
just weirdos
That's right.
who draw little pictures of like
True.
superheroes all day or whatever. And so she takes our coffee and fucking skips out of town.
She slams. She
And so
throws
we're-
the coffee against the wall and walks out. It's-
Oh my God. Does the shards of coffee, does it kill the third person who was with
Yes.
us who we didn't mention until now? Who was that third person? The old man.
the old man.
Who was the old man?
Who was the old man?
I
That
can say it's Morgan Freeman.
okay.
Yeah,
'Cause
she
of
kills
Morgan Fairchild.
Because of Morgan
Morgan
Fairchild.
Freeman.
Morgan Fairchild.
Is that our it? Is that it? We just did
I
it,
guess.
and I didn't realize it.
We did it. We did it.
I was
We-
worried because we've stumbled the last few weeks. But you're saying Morgan Fairchild. She's the one that hang out at a coffee shop. Good one. At a
Drink
gas
coffees.
station.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Revenge. What's happened with revenge?
All right. I have my revenge character.
Do we both do the same one, like always?
I don't know.
Go, you go first because I don't want you to change
All
it.
Okay, so my
Start
character
the music.
is actually a character who did not appear in this. Spider-Man, as you all know, is a character that is very famous. Well, he's a very famous character, first off. But I hope, is the music playing? Yes, it is. I hear it. But Spider-Man, in recent years, has become especially famous because of his multi-dimensional counterparts.
Okay.
There has been the very popular movie Across the Spider-Verse, and Into the Spider-Verse is the first one, and I think it's Across the Spider-Verse.
Muppet Spider-Man.
And we see these Spider-Mans from different worlds. There's like Spider-Ham, who's like a pig, and there's Hobie Brown, Spider-Punk, he's just cool.
Mhm.
And there's Miles Morales, who's like the Brooklyn Spider-Man, and there's other Spider people. And one of the things we know is that it's pretty common, it's not common, but sometimes these Spider-Man cross over. This time, it wasn't a Spider-Man that crossed over. There was a flash of light. The universe shuddered,
Mhm.
right? And it's like done with the most awesome 70s special effects you could see. The streets of New York temporarily morph into the streets of New York, but it's a different New York. And out steps a figure silhouetted from behind. He's kind of rotund. He's got a little pot belly, some gray hair.
Okay.
It's Uncle fucking Ben.
Finally.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, here I am. The last thing he remembers is he was sitting in his car waiting to pick up Peter from like some gig. And like this burglar came up to him and was like, "Give me your money, old man, and give me your car." And just when he thought he was about to die, a portal opens up and he finds himself in this strange new world.
Ooh.
And he's walking through the streets. He recognizes he's in Queens, but it's like a really fancy Queens. There's like a fucking mansion up ahead. And he recognizes it's the house he shares with his beloved wife, May Parker.
Nice.
And he goes inside. And I should also mention he traveled through time.
Okay.
This is not 1978, which is when the series is set. Turns out let's say this is 1970.
The Beatles have just broken up.
The Beatles have just broken up. There's people crying in the streets. Yeah, they're crying in the streets. This guy's smashing the album. It's just like, "I'll never listen to music again." And Uncle Ben walks into the house and he sees his beloved May. She's played by a different actress this time because that's kind of par for the course for this show.
Totally another one, not even the ones we've seen.
Totally different. No, just a new actress. Like, let's say it's played by Morgan Fairchild. No, B. Arthur's better. So he's like, "May, it's me, Ben." And then he looks beyond May, and what does he see?
Max.
He sees fucking Uncle Max. Uncle Max is lounging there. The only thing he's wearing is his Buccaneer boots.
And he's blown his pants out already. So
Tim,
Ben knows what's
he didn't just blow his pants out. He blew his pants off. He's completely naked.
Oh my God.
He's got the boots on. He's got a Buccaneer hat. He's got a little sash around his waist that he's tucked a rapier into it. And he and May are engaged in some flagrante delicto.
Some role playing.
And Ben takes his revenge. You know what he does?
Uh-oh. Well,
he goes into the kitchen. He takes a pot of water, puts it on to boil, pours in. He puts about like maybe 2 cups of water. He puts in about 2.5 cups of rice.
they let him do this?
Well, they're scrambling to get dressed. They don't know what's happening. Yeah. He burns that fucking rice. He burns all their rice. And unfortunately, it was chimichanga night. And they really needed that rice to cut into the chorizo. It was really spicy. And they're like, "Well, I guess we don't have rice." After that weirdo came in here and cooked all our rice.
Okay.
So at this point, they're dressed again, right?
Okay, fine. Okay.
So it's Uncle Max, it's Aunt May, and it's young dead-eyed Peter Parker who just came to live with them after his parents died. And they're eating the chimichangas, and Max has a fucking heart attack because it's too spicy.
What?
Yeah. Because there's no rice to cut it. The chimichanga just burns him.
Uncle Max.
Like, "My heart burn!" Uncle Max.
Yes. Okay.
Ben takes his revenge on Max for not being Ben in this world. Yep.
Well, what did Max do wrong?
He wasn't Ben.
Okay.
Look, toxic masculinity expresses itself in many ways, shape, and forms. And I know Uncle Ben is generally held up to be a sainted figure, but you go back in time, you go to your house, you find your wife played by a different actor with a different guy entirely, who is probably, let's say he was played by the actor who plays Uncle Leon from Seinfeld.
Yes.
That's going to make you go a little crazy.
And plus, Uncle Max, he worked at a pharmacy and he got Peter a job there. And when Peter would deliver medicine to the wrong people, he'd slap his ear. Peter goes,
Box their ears.
"Slap my ear, Uncle Max."
So then his mission accomplished because he was crouched on the building across the street where I guess, I don't know, the Watsons lived.
Yeah.
He sees that Uncle Max has died. Uncle Ben from another universe, he grabs the rope next to him, goes to swing to safety, but the front line snaps, he hits a wall and explodes. And the lesson is revenge. If you're going to commit revenge, you better dig 2 graves, or at least be prepared to explode into a shower of sparks if you swing away from the scene of the crime.
That's quite a metaphor.
Yeah, it's really good.
I thought it was going to end. It was going to be Uncle Ben's burnt rice. God, I thought you were going to.
The burnt rice already happened, Tim. He burned the rice, and they didn't have any for their chimichangas.
Spider-Man 2, Uncle Ben's burnt rice.
Whoa, Tim, rewind this. When he explodes into sparks, he's just rice.
It's just rice, okay.
It was just rice, burnt rice. And that Aunt May, who's, she's kind of upset because Uncle Max just died. She steps outside, she's like, "Peter, do you smell burnt rice?" And Peter doesn't smell anything because he's upstairs with his Playboy, the same one that killed Uncle Ben previously in another episode. Done.
Start my music. So Dr. Moon But the real Dr. Moon, he still got in trouble for making clones.
Yeah, I mean, he did try to
So-
murder some people, even though the elevator operator didn't find any evidence.
The real
elevator
Dr. Moon, he didn't try to murder, he just made clones. But
Yeah.
so he was sent to prison for 4 years because he cloned
4 years.
humans without a permit, and he got out of prison
Okay.
in January of 1981.
Well, this probably means something. Oh, wait.
What?
That's right after John Lennon died.
Yeah. You thought this episode would be about Kermit, then you thought it'd be about Beatles. I don't know. So Dr. Moon, he immediately goes underground. And he starts cloning himself again because he wants to create another evil self that will help him get revenge on the Tobalt Award Committee for never honoring his accomplishments.
All right.
So thus, he clones himself. But this new clone is truly evil in a way Dr. Moon did not foresee. This clone wants to work in advertising. He was very talented.
Oh, that's wretched.
Yep. And he got a job at Twin Cities Advertising, one of the top firms of 1981. His big account? Well, this clone, Mr. Moon, he loved the way porta potties looked all alike, kind of like clones. So he took on the job of coming up with names and logos for all the different porta potty companies.
Oh, no, this is just a list so you can do all the
He-
potty party jokes.
He's the one who came up with such gems as Call Ahead, Rent Ahead, You're in Need, Hoopa Trooper, Honey Trap, Lot of Load, Lucky Lou, Bum a Bog, Stink a Stall, A Movable Beast, Sit and Go, Shove a Dove, Boombox, Sneak a Stool, The End is Here,
Wait,
Catch a Falling
sneak
Star.
a stool?
Two girls, one log. Rain in the summertime. Shaken, not turd.
Idiot.
PCP. And the classic.
PCP. Oh,
And the classic. I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
on the
So
No Boggy Creek, though, huh?
no. So that clone was a bust. He just went into advertising, but Dr. Moon was not deterred. He cloned him.
Wait, was that a pun?
Nope.
Deterred?
No more poop jokes. But the end of that, he cloned himself again, hoping to get an evil clone. But this clone was obsessed with writing movie scripts. This clone started working on a movie script idea he had that involved an archaeologist in a race against time to find a Noah's Ark before the Nazis found it. But on June 12th of 1981, this clone saw that a movie came out called Raiders of the Lost Ark. He never saw it, but from the description, he figured, yeah, that was his idea. They ripped it off totally. So he dropped out of society. He started working on a movie about a teddy bear called Mogwai that didn't like to get wet. Or if it got wet, it would clone itself many times and knock over people's Christmas trees. He thought he would try one more time. Third time's the charm. He created another clone. That's third time's the charm. Did I say that? I did.
Yes, you did. Like 3 times, so that's third time's the charm.
But this third one was evil in another different way. He wanted to form a religion and be a cult leader. And so that's what he did. People would gather in the green church he built, and they would look at the holy red balloon, and they would pray to the cow that jumped over Prophet Moon. And they would chant, "See that cow jumping over Prophet Moon? See the 3 little cloned bears sitting on chairs, and the 2 cloned kitties, and the pair of kittens, and the pair of mittens, and a little house, and a young cloned mouse."
Are you doing Goodnight Moon?
And-
You're doing Goodnight Moon!
and a comb brush full of DNA, and a bowl of
We're going to
hay,
get sued by Margot Wise Brown.
and an old virgin lady who whispered, "Okay, good night, Prophet Moon. Good night, Prophet Moon. Good night, Prophet Moon, jumping over the moon. Good night, little red light. Good night, red holy balloon. Oh, you messed me up. Good night, light, and the red holy balloon. Good night, bears. Good night, chairs. Good night, kittens. Good night, mittens." I can't read much more without getting sued, can I?
I think you already are sued.
And good night, old virgin lady born in May, and good night, Prophet Moon, who summons our Lord very soon. Oh, I messed that all
Was
up.
the old lady Aunt May?
Yeah. And the strangest
Nice.
part is that Dr. Moon, the original, he got caught up in the cult of his very own clone. That was the end of him. They moved to Waco, Texas, and we don't know what happened to them. The movie's called Triclones. Bum, bum, bum. We're sorry, everybody. Whew, we really brought it home.
Woo.
I'm glad.
Yep.
You thought it was going to be about Kermit?
Yeah, you were very cunning. You laid the trap that I thought you were going to be obsessed with frogs. Like you're wising up, and you thought I was going to do Kermit then. But of course, I had to avenge the insanity of Uncle Max.
We're sorry, everybody.
Are we? They know what they're coming.
Spider-Man's getting to me.
I just realized something, Tim. While you were reading the entirety of Goodnight Moon, the beloved children's classic, I realized we skipped an episode of the TV show.
Well, it doesn't matter. So whatever you want to pick.
All right.
Why? What did we skip? You can still pick it. It doesn't matter.
Okay. I'm gonna. So
what's happening next week, folks? It'll be much better next week.
This was the best episode we've ever done, Tim. I don't know what you're talking about. Next week, so we've already done the movie-length pilot episode of Spider-Man. We did the Deadly Dust parts 1 and 2, episodes 1 and 2 of the ongoing series. We skipped ahead to episode 4, Night of the Clones, the episode you just listened to. We're going to go back to the episode 3, The Curse of Rava.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like it's gonna. I feel like the potential for casual 70s racism is very high in this one.
Is this one where someone has psychic powers?
A telekinetic.
Okay,
but I think we're done
because we talked. Oh man,
it's a long one.
Kabumo made me talk for an hour 25 about that Night Killer.
Yeah, I was on such a journey with that one with you all where I'm like, I think I want to watch this, and then like a second later, I'm like, I don't want to watch this, and then I'm like, maybe I will. It was so weird. It was like,
it's a funny movie.
And then because you actually did a really cool drawing for it, I was like, I think I want to see this. Then I actually saw a photo of the mask. I'm like, I don't think I want to see this. Wow. Looks real bad.
I can't wait because in 2 weeks it's going to be October, and it's just going to be scary Halloween movies.
All octopus.
And we couldn't do. There's not enough. Not enough of them.
No.
Not enough Octo movies. Like
scary
my movies are already
everybody.
picked out. I can't wait. I know them.
Ooh. All right. Mine are not, but I'll find some good werewolf related fare.
You like stop motion? You like it, right? I like stop motion.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Email us. Email us. Gmail. What a
Seti
great...
Bimco with an E. Seti Bimco with an E at the end at gmail.com.
Hey, go to...
Write to us about how much you enjoy the vocal stylings of our producer, Ms. Lee.
Help us improve our podcast.
Give us reviews, give us ratings, give us money. Go listen to my other podcast, Hypothetical Island. Give us reviews. Give us money.
What would you do if someone split their pants in front of you? You know what happened is we're number 3 in performing arts on Good Pods, and I'm like, I can't take the pressure. Can't take the pressure.
You snapped.
I snapped. So follow us on Instagram. Give us reviews. There's my brag.
Yep.
Buy my books.
Good. Work that
Buy
brag
George's
in.
books.
Yep. Give us money.
That's it.
Money. All right.
And
see you all next week for what might be the conclusion of Spider Week. We're not actually sure because is there 4 weeks in this month?
No. I'm done. I'm done with Spider-Man.
No, we have to do.
It,
it's the whole month.
I know.
It's the
next week is the end. All right, George. I'll see you next week.
All right.
Let me try to stop
this. See you next week, Tim.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
This has been a Pity Party Line production.
Party line, it's a party line.
Oh, you're right, gas station.
And then a guy would come in and he'd say, we're hunting monsters. Morgan Fairchild would be like, I don't believe a thing you're saying. There's no monsters. I don't know.
I'll come with you anyway, because these guys are losers. They're talking about the Beatles. Sorry, Beatles fans.
Why?
All right.
Who's not a Beatles fan? Somebody.
Michael Stipe.
Really? Is that true?
Yeah. I remember reading he called them he said the Beatles are overrated and a joke band. I'm like, well, you are the man who wrote Shiny Happy People. So you're entitled to say that about the most famous band that ever existed. I like R.E.M. What do I say?
I like them too. I like them. I saw them.
I think I did too.
Fables of the Reconstruction Tour.
Oh. Oh, dropping some.
And you know what? There was an old man there when we went with his
Was he at a
young
gas
daughters,
station?
and he's like, "Yeah, I was here and saw the Who."
Ugh.
And he had to bring his daughters to see like this. He's like, "I'm old. I saw the Who."
And did his daughters say who? He goes, exactly. They know who. He's like, no, that's what I'm saying. They said who, and it was like a who's on first thing.
And his grandfather was there. He said, "I saw the band. Who's on first? What's on second?" Yeah.
We had such a clean out.
All right.
You just dragged us back in.
Let's cut. Edit here.